Hi, this is the Be Well with Michelle Greenwell podcast. Our heartwarming conversation is designed to lift you on your wellness journey. Grab your cup of tea and enjoy the podcast. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Today's a little bit different setup than it usually is, and that's because I'm fortunate enough to be able to spend some time with my sister Charlene, and we wanted to share a little bit about the Mission4Change tea, but also about the Moyo family and about compassionate outreach. And so our episode today is all about that. So I like to start usually with some kind of intention to get started. And because we're going to be talking about the Mission4Change tea, that is a tea that has an affirmation on the front about together, when we work together, we're able to create change. And so I'm going to invite you, as you're listening in today for the start of this podcast, is in what way could you create change in the community in which you belong or that you interact with? And it may be different communities. And as we go through the podcast, if you're sipping on your cup of tea, then just to be able to bring back around to the conversation of how change can happen. And we want to bring that in. So it's a little bit different start, but thank you for agreeing to spend some time on the podcast.
Thank you for having me again.
And bringing it back. So if you haven't listened to some of the previous episodes where we've chatted about the Mission4Change tea and also about the Moyo family, Charlene and I in season 3 did quite a few podcasts, usually the fourth podcast of the month. So you can find back episodes if you like, where we go in a little bit deeper. And for those people who want to know more about the Mission4Change tea, this tea has its own videos. So if you go into the playlist on my YouTube channel and you look at the teas and the power of herbs, there's 6 there, and I actually focus just on this tea and the power of the blends as they relate to each other, and I bring about a whole piece for you to think really differently about herbs and tea. So I'll invite you to check out those resources, but let's get down to the conversation. And usually we would say cheers. Today we're going to ask you to do the cheers, and we're going to get started. So, Charlene, do you want to talk a little bit about what's been happening so far with the work that you've been doing with the Moyo family?
Sure. So the Moyo family, if you're new to learning about this family, is a family in Malawi, which is in southern Africa, a very poor district in Africa, and very hot climate in the sub-Saharan area of Africa. And this family is now a family of extended family members of 25 people, all living together and trying to survive in really, really difficult circumstances and harsh climates, and struggling really to meet the needs of both food and shelter, clothing, basic education, basic water, really all the basic necessities of life on a daily basis. So it's not something where in the Western world we just go to our tap and turn on our water or open our fridge and have our food. They're having to grow their basic food and walk kilometers to carry their daily water back home, and then boil the water just to have a safe water supply. And the children walk many kilometers every day in order to get to school in temperatures that here we would consider life-threatening temperatures, up to 40 degrees Celsius daily or hotter. So really, really incredible circumstances that I don't know how I would survive. I don't know how they survive, and yet they do. And we've been connected now for almost 8 years. It's really, really an amazing journey that we've had. And we continue to communicate on an almost daily basis with them, which is quite an amazing communication and conversation. And we learn a lot about each other culturally and about how we view the world. And it's been an interesting journey, along with the tea and having the tea as a way to help support them show them that the world isn't as big a place and as lonely a place as it was looking, and as bleak a place as it was looking for them. So that's one way that we use to help support them. So that's been one of the real blessings that we've seen.
Mm-hmm. And we were talking about ways that we engage with the tea. So for those of you that have heard the stories kind of coming over time here, the Mission for Change tea has gone all over the world. People have purchased it to support the Moyo family, but they've also purchased it because they love the tea. Mm-hmm. And when I arrived here, I brought some lobster with me, and it was encased in corn, which is one of the main staples that they have in Malawi. And what we did with the corn was we actually took the Mission for Change tea and we poured it into the corn as we were cooking it. So instead of just putting water in, we actually put the tea in, and it was so beautiful.
Yeah, it was very good.
The flavor that came out. So there's different ways that you can engage with the tea, but we also then had that opportunity to reflect on the tea and its impact it's had on our family, mm-hmm. and the impact it's had on both the Tai Chi clubs that we belong to, and the way that all of us really have developed a community of support for the Moyo family. And sitting and eating the corn and enjoying the flavors that the tea brings out, it was a new experience for us, really, to think about how much more we could carry that through. You want to talk about the crops that they work with?
Sure. So our Tai Chi club here used the tea as a bit of a fundraiser, and we sold some of that over a workshop weekend here, or a retreat weekend that we held this past weekend. And the fundraising that we did from that, I've sent on to the Moyo family, and those funds were used by the family both to purchase some seeds that they're planting now in their faraway garden, as they call it. They've got some land that's rented quite a ways from where they live that they harvest, or that they plow and by hand. And they purchase maize seeds, which is like a hybrid of corn. So they plant this, they tend it all season. And this is mostly one woman in the family with her now 2-year-old little boy, or her and Peter's 2-year-old boy, Stella. She's mostly tending this garden throughout the season, and living under a sheet of plastic at this garden. Mm-hmm. Throughout the season, and raising this, and then that will be harvested, and then the maize will be ground down into flour and used to feed the family over several months. So that becomes part of the staple of their diet throughout the year. And then this is also a flour that when that runs out, they will then also purchase it. So a 50 kilogram bag of maize flour right now in Malawi it costs probably about $80 to $90 of our dollars. Mm-hmm. And that will feed this family for about 2 weeks.
Wow.
And they would make this, into, they'd mix it with water and make it into almost like what we would think of like a tortilla, or like into porridge, or, different mm-hmm. forms of food. They would mix it in and cook it with it mm-hmm. over fires. But it's very much a staple kind of food for them, that along with rice. They also grow.
And then Stella she has to take a bus and she has to walk to get to this faraway garden. So it's not close to the rest of the family. No. When she's gone, she's actually quite a ways away from them.
Yes, so she's living at this garden for several months, and has her own cooking pots there, and has to cook for herself there. She's there for several months. She may walk and bus back if there's some emergency, but for the most part, she's there with the little boy now for the season. And depending on if we raise enough money, we might, right now we don't have enough money to rent a hut for her to sleep in. So right now she's sleeping under a piece of plastic with a tent pole. with the little boy right at the garden. So there's one plot of land, like one plot of rented plot that she's seeded with rice. So she grew rice seedlings at a greenhouse there, which their idea of a greenhouse and our idea of a greenhouse would be two different things. A greenhouse there would not be a big physical structure. It would be more plastic sheeting and that type of thing. And then she's transplanted that into the land. Mm-hmm. And then also another plot of land that's for the maize now. Mm-hmm. And then later in the season, she will do the same thing with sweet potatoes and mm-hmm. grow those there and tend those. And at different times in the year, some of the older children, the ones in the later teens, will be bused out there because I think it's about 20 kilometers maybe away mm-hmm. from where they are. Which when you don't have a motorized vehicle or other mode of transportation, mm-hmm. this isn't something where you can get to daily.
Yeah.
For them that it might as well be 100 kilometers away.
Yeah.
It's not something that's readily accessible.
And then to harvest, then they need the bags in order to store it in.
Yeah. When it comes time to harvest, then they'll purchase like
burlap sacks.
Yeah, sacks to harvest it into, and then those will get transported back home, and then they'll get transported to a mill where they will get it ground down as needed.
I'm smiling because I'm thinking we're saying transported, but they have to get heavy pound bags.
Yes. Back
to where they live mm-hmm. on a bus or walk it.
Yeah, 20 or 50 kilogram bags.
Yeah.
At a time. Yeah. And then still transport that to get milled down and still try and protect those from thieves and pests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So the victory of actually ending up with the sacks at home and they actually can use them is a huge accomplishment and success for.
Yes.
For just that aspect of living.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's in her early 20s. Mm-hmm. This is a young lady.
Yeah.
Who's bound and determined that she can provide a lot of the food staple that the family needs just to survive for a lot of the next year's harvest season. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really, it blows your mind just how hard they worked just to survive, just to meet their daily needs, and other members of the family, there's some of the young boys work hard to try to raise small birds to try to get eggs for the family. Some of those birds have been stolen. Some of them have been destroyed by some of the big hurricanes that have come through. So there's been some real challenges with that. Different members of the family who have to walk and carry the water back to the family before they then have to walk to school, so they get up at 3 or 4 in the morning to carry the water back, but then they still have to walk to school several kilometers in incredible heat and then come back to
and they're home. Walking in many cases without shoes.
Yes.
And at 40 degrees, the ground is burning.
Yes. It's just, it's unimaginable when we think of the things we complain about here. When we hit 30 or 35 degrees, mm-hmm. and our temperatures cool down by 10 or 15 degrees at night when we hit those temperatures in the summer, and we find that quite intolerable. Their temperatures drop by 2 or 3 degrees at night. Mm-hmm. They don't have electrical processes to have fans or anything like that running, so they don't have a real drop in temperature overnight, mm-hmm. And they have just extremes from incredible rains to incredible heat, with no let up in between. And there's really no way for them to escape that. No one chooses where they're born. It is what it is wherever you're born is where you're born. They don't have the means to say, well, I'm going to up and choose to move to Canada or choose to move to Europe or anything like that. They just don't have that opportunity. Mm-hmm. So they have to make the best with what they have. And they're really trying to do that with with the opportunities that they're presented with. And they certainly let us know the hopes and dreams that they have, and they try to maximize those. They're not looking for a handout, they're looking for a hand up. They're looking for the opportunities that they can make with what we can help them to maximize. And they take every opportunity to show us how hard they are using those opportunities to do the best for the family.
And when we first started talking about this on the podcast, it was just one family, and then it went to 16 as they started to bring in all the orphans, and obviously now 25. It's grown yet again. So do you want to talk a little bit about extended family?
Well, some of it, as I've talked more and more to the family, is some people they didn't mention because those people weren't sick or ill. And as a family, they have the philosophy that they really, it's sort of no one is left behind. So the original family that I spoke with, the dad passed away from COVID a few years ago, and his brother stepped up, and I learned that brother has continually taken in his sisters and brothers' children as the brother or sister passed away and had children who were left as what we would think of as orphans. He's never let them be orphaned. They've continued to be brought in and not allowed to go to, not left to be taken to an orphanage. They've always continued to be considered members of the family and raised as a member of the family, so that everyone is an extended aunt, uncle, pseudo-parent of any child who is a member of the family, or their parent has passed away, whether it's from malaria, whether it was from tuberculosis, whether it was from measles or mumps or some infection or something that here is treatable. Here we would be able to go to the doctor, go to the pharmacy and get treatment. Dysentery, poor water, poor quality water, living conditions, all these things. And their loved one has passed. And this family keeps taking in those family members. Some of the family members are now adults, and they continue to stay in this core group. And some of them continue to go to school. So they may be 20 years old, and they are finally able to go to what to us would be high school, because they never had the opportunity to continue in school before. But this family sees it as very important to continue with schooling. And in Malawi, you don't just get to go to education. You have to achieve certain grades, you have to pay for the education, and you have to be invited to the next grade.
Wow.
Before you'll be allowed to take the schooling.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people in this family never had the opportunity. So we're trying to educate people as well in the family. And everyone considers it an obligation to contribute. So they're all working towards, whether it's watering the garden, whether it's going out and helping Stella with growing the vegetables, or the crops, whether it's trying to shore up the building that they're living in to try to prevent it from collapsing before we can build a house. Whether it's walking the younger children to school. Everybody works towards making sure that everybody is still kept in the family and looked after, and nobody's alone. Yeah, it's really amazing.
Wow. And I think the other thing, we're shedding a light for people to really realize this is how other people live in our world where we're so really incredibly privileged, and still have a lot of people in our own country that don't have things.
Yeah.
But at the same time, to really look at how these people can gain knowledge in order to help themselves. And then that's not just helping that unit that's helping everybody else in their community. Because as they start to learn things from the research that you've done, other families then can start to benefit from that. It starts to weave out, despite the theft that happens because of course they have a little bit more than other people might have, and people are starving. So, you do what you have to do, but.
Yeah. And it really shares the idea of community. And that's the name of this tea is community, right? And being able to reach out from where we are in Canada and to reach across the world over the internet and to be able to share and to learn and grow with them and to be able to offer some hope and some inspiration. And they share and offer that hope and inspiration back to us as well. But to be able to connect that way and to share back and forth with them and to learn and to hear that each of the people in that family have these hopes and inspirations, and to be able to say and ask them, what are your hopes? What are your dreams? And for them to stop and actually express those, and for them to hear that someone wants to know what those are, and to start laying the groundwork and the plans for that. It's amazing that really you can make changes, you can make a difference in the world, and it really is possible. And that's really quite inspirational is to know that everybody can make that difference. And here's a family of 25 people that maybe can make a difference there, and we can make a difference in their lives. And those people are alive today because all these people came together here to make a difference in this family's life over there. And now these kids can do something different in Malawi with how their families will be raised in the future. Maybe their lives will be different moving forward, and they'll be able to grow their crops differently, or they'll be able to maybe find new ways to find water and to make it healthier and to live healthier down the road. They don't have to always have the same future as maybe they would have had 10 years ago. So, it's amazing the change we can make.
So, there's the small things. So there's like the hippo rollers, which were purchased several years back and are coming up for needing to be renewed, and some new ones purchased. So that's one area of focus and priority. But also the opportunity they've got their faraway land, which now provides them with a place that they can actually grow rice, which they couldn't do before. And now they're looking at another little parcel of land that they'll be able to actually really claim that will provide them with so much more than where they have been.
Yes. So we've almost finished the purchase of a small plot of land that we'll be building their house on. So this plot of land doesn't come up for sale very often in Malawi from what they've told me. And this one came up for sale, and it's a lot closer to schools, closer to the hospital, closer to the market center. So that will give them an opportunity to maybe be able to have some small businesses themselves where they could offer things for sale or have some kind of commercial opportunities to raise funds for themselves as well, and reduce some of the costs involved with healthcare, because being able to get to medical treatment has been a real roadblock and a stumbling block for them. And it's also upland, as they call it. So it's up out of the floodplains, because where they have been living has been in the floodplains and has been quite devastating and has been a huge health risk. So this will be a step up from that as well. And will allow them to be able to grow some food at less risk than where they've been as well. And so it won't be as much in danger of being flooded out too. So that will be a big step up as well. So it's another opportunity that they didn't think was possible.
Yeah.
That now has become possible. So Yeah.
I'm thinking back to some of the first episodes that we did where you were talking about how you researched the way to garden to use the least amount of water.
Yes.
And that was a revelation in the village
Mm-hmm.
of what was going to be possible. And then you think of that knowledge and how that combines with the different kinds of land they've been able to get themselves to,
Mm-hmm.
and what that's going to mean for knowledge. And again, taking that knowledge, but it comes into different places where it's never been before.
Yeah. Every step is different. And people ask, well, how is it possible and how can you do this? And they do have telephones, and that's a key way for them to communicate there. And non-government organizations or charities have put in solar panel charging stations within the communities, and that happened years ago. And so families have been able to buy really cheap cell phones there that need replacing fairly often because of the heat. The batteries wear out fairly quickly and stuff, but they can go and they can charge their cell phones. But that ends up being how they can communicate maybe to the hospitals or to their family members who are far away. But they can't, and that creates the Wi-Fi zone for them within the whole community. So that's how they get their Wi-Fi. But they don't have enough bandwidth to actually get to the internet to do much searching. So the government may send them notices locally, but they can't actually search things. So they'll ask questions and ask you to search things. So you have to provide them with the information. They can't actually get out to get that information themselves, get out to the web. Yeah. So you can communicate, but they don't actually have the same access to information that we have. So that's where the connections make so much difference in their lives. So much.
And asking the right questions too, because there's language and culture and just the way our knowledge is put together is so different. So to ask the right question to get the correct answer to come back with it, that there wasn't a misunderstanding somewhere.
Yes. And it takes a long time to build the rapport and the connection and the trust. And with the family, although it's one name that's on the account for them, it could be 10 different individuals on the other end that I may be talking with, and they each speak in a different pattern. So over time, I know, even though it may say Stephen or Maria on the name that I'm speaking with, I'll say, is this Tadala today? Or is this Chikondi? Am I speaking with Grace? Because I know that each of them has a different pattern of speech.
Yeah.
They each have different sayings. They each speak just in a different, just little nuances. They ask different questions of me. They refer to me differently as well. So they ask me different questions. They focus on different things when they talk. And so, you have to respond differently and focus on different things. So it takes a long time. One conversation may take a week to get through. And I may not get back to one conversation for a month because I may not talk to that person again for a month. So it's not a boom, 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 get your answers and get everything moving along. It can take a long time to work through one issue or one problem and get my answers back that I asked one person now, but they also share all the information back through the family. Nothing is sacred amongst, there's no secret. If you told one person this, it all goes back and everything goes back through to Peter for sure. And Maria, the eldest of the adults know everything that's going on. There's certainly no secrets. And they all, especially the older adults, are all involved in the decision making. And that's also important, that it's not for me to make choices and say, here's what should be done. Here's what you need to do. It's important that I respect that this is their lives. I'm not there. I don't understand the hardship and the problems. And it's not for us to be the do-gooders saying, here, you must go use this money to do this. It's for me to be respectful and say, I understand there's a lot of hardship. And, I trust that you'll make the best choices, given that this will not be enough money for all of the needs, you know. And here's what information I can share with you about maybe some things that might be helpful, you know. But they also provide so much information back that, you know, from my background in sociology too, and all of the learning that you could do in a sociology class is nothing like the vast information that I've got back from them about their culture and their ways of living, and so much, you know, and just their joy for life and joy for family. And there's just so much knowledge and information back. It's amazing.
And as I just want to acknowledge there have been different groups that have come forward that have used the tea to create a sense of community amongst the members of that particular group. And that has meant people realizing that they can make a change in those groups. So as I started off saying, if you want to think about your goal while you're listening to this podcast today about how you might be more involved in that community group, the Mission4Change CommuniTEA has this opportunity for you to bring and gel together a group of people. Maybe you decide you want to purchase for the whole group, and then that has another giving effect in that immediately goes back out to the family, because Charlene has a direct access. It's not being passed through channels where different people are going to take different bits off of it for administration and whatever. It's just like it goes straight there. But then it also has that ripple effect, because now you have this group of people who are engaged with this tea, and they see the effects of what it's done for the group to come together, and it can go out from there. And that's the piece where we're starting to see that it's starting to travel, and the ideas are starting to be taken in and realized. And when I think about, you know, going from that small family to 25, we would be hard pressed to be able to bring 25 people into our families, put them under one roof the way we're situated at the moment, and feed all of them. You know, like it would just be such a challenge to try to do that. But this is a way for us to really start to grow and realize and make a difference. And I just, when I see the opportunity that we can have to reach out in this one way, and then watch how the ripples come through. And I'm excited to see what happens as they get to know this little piece of land and what it can grow, what it can't grow, how it can nurture, but it also has trees on it, which provide shade.
Yes.
Which they haven't had shade for anything.
Yes.
So then what does that mean for them for lodging and being in the afternoon when the sun gets the hottest, to be able to actually have a place to go? And you also talked about being closer to the hospital and the school. So when someone is sick, we've mentioned before that a family member has to go with them to care for them while they're at the hospital. So that means two people have to leave the family to go do that caregiving. And that makes a difference if you're doing 11 kilometers to the hospital while you're really, really sick. And then how long that recovery is going to be, and then the trip back home again. This is going to put them a little bit closer, so they have the opportunity to change some people in and out if they need to do that based on who needs to be at harvest time, etc.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been times when Stephen was alive, when David was young, Stephen carried David by hand to the hospital, carried him running 11 kilometers. When David was really sick when he was young, because there just wasn't money for a taxi. And a taxi for them at that point was a bike ride, a bike taxi to the hospital. There just wasn't money. And so Stephen, in desperation, had carried him by foot to the hospital, that whole long distance, just exhausted. So to have that access to the hospital, and for them, the hospital is the only access to medical care. There isn't a doctor's office like there would be here. So if there's a fever, if there's a cut, a sprain, anything like that, that is the only access to medical care. You can't go to a doctor's appointment somewhere else. And this is the small hospital. So this is a hospital that was created by a charitable organization, I think from Italy, if I remember right. And the next closest hospital is about 35 kilometers away. That one you have to be directed to by the smaller hospital in order to get to the large hospital.
So if you needed surgery or something like that.
Yeah, if you have something more serious. And to get to the large hospital, you have to prepay to go there.
Yeah.
And be directed to go there. So it's quite monumental. If you don't have the money and you don't have the funds, you just don't get to go.
Yeah.
So it's pretty serious.
And then you were talking about if somebody had a fever, they could purchase some medicine that they could keep for when a fever comes around, which happens quite a bit. But then they may only have 10 tablets because that's all they could afford to buy. But you have 18 that end up with the same illness because it's gone through, malaria's gone through as an example. And they have to then choose who's going to get that medicine and who's not going to get that medicine. It's like,
and you can't buy like a big bottle of Tylenol like you do here. You buy a little strip of, I think it's paracetamol or something, is like sort of the equivalent of acetaminophen here. And you just buy like a little strip of them. You don't have massive quantities of just, boxes off a shelf here. They just don't have access to medications in the same way. So it's really sort of pick and choose for that kind of thing. And then, with a large family, the mumps went through the family last year. And when you have all of these individuals all staying in close quarters with not much hygiene, they have pit latrines, so like the dugout toilets, no running water, and all of a sudden everyone's got, sore, swollen glands, all in pain, in heat, there's no popsicles. I can't imagine what they went through, and who gets the 10 Tylenol? You can't get everyone to the hospital. There's no money for that. It's just mind-boggling.
And one pill might help the fever, but here we would have several across several days, but they're going to get their one shot at a little bit of relief.
Or for the women, if they've got menstrual cramps, and for some of them it's quite severe, and there's nothing you can offer them. There's no heating pad to heat up. To put on them, there's no relief you can offer them. It's quite. I don't. You wonder for all of the discomforts that we have, and we have all these creature comforts that we can just grab off the shelf, out of the cupboard, warm up, cool down, take advantage of, and we still whine and complain. It's very humbling to have these daily conversations with, and you certainly learn to check your own discomforts rather quickly and sort of give yourself a check and recognize that somehow other people manage and survive and you don't know how, but they do. And you learn that you need to reach out and help others before you reach for some of the creature comforts that you really don't need.
Yeah, exactly.
And that goes back to the community.
So if you're listening and you just want to make a donation, you can go to the GoFundMe account, which is Mission4Change, Stephen Moyo.
Yes.
Right? And that would be one way where you can make the donation right there. Or you can just reach out directly to me, and I'll be happy to pass you to Charlene so that you can exchange by email, and that will give an opportunity for direct contact. And maybe there is something where you think you would like to make an impact in one direction. Maybe it's school books for everybody who would like to go to school, because they've shared supplies, they've shared textbooks, then all those textbooks have now been destroyed by the last storm that went through. So to be able to rebuild that piece so that they can go to school and be educated. Perhaps there's a way that you want to participate with the group of people that you have that perhaps could support this next stage of finishing off purchasing the land and then being able to finally get to building them a home, that they have a roof over their head and they can protect themselves from the sun and from the rain. Perhaps there's something that way. And again, recognizing that whatever the priority is, when it gets to them, if they don't have food, that's the number one priority, or sickness has gone through and that needs to be a priority. But if we all start to think about how can we help, how is that going to change the community in which they live and the opportunities they'll be able to help their neighbors with? And we can continue to build that. From the Cape Breton Tea Company, we continue to supply the tea packages, and those go out and we try to keep it at 100% going back to the family. And so that's something that is part of what we're doing. And we just hope that this message can go further and you can start to think about how you could make an impact. And one of the things that I like to share in workshops that I do is when you have the idea that you're going to connect with someone else for a healing capacity, your body, immediately the enzymes change to support your well-being and the person you're interacting with. And it's as easy as keeping that intention right present. But if you think that a way to help might be compassionate outreach to the Moyo family and to really start that idea and spur that idea for you, we would love for you to come in and be a part of our family of supporting and finding a way for us to reach Malawi and reach one of the poorest nations in the world in a way that you can really identify with a personal story and with people who have the same ambitions we have. Do you want to share before we finish what some of them would like to do if they could get the education and if they could have their choice of what they were doing?
Sure. Grace is a young woman, and she would love to be a hairstylist, she's decided. Chikonde loves playing, it's not basketball, it's like basketball, but it's more popular. I can't think of the name of the sport there. Let's see. Another one of the young ladies wants to be a plumber because she wants to help with all the water problems. And she thought if she would be able to help with the plumbing and connections and the water supply and safe water supply, she could help not only their family, but other families in Malawi to be able to do that better. David, he's about 14. He wants to do something in science. He loves anything science, technical, engineering. Like he's so smart being able to do all of these kinds of things. Anne would like to start a used clothing, not store, but market, like little shop in the market when they get the land closer to the marketplace. Stella, who's at the Faraway Garden, loves agriculture and wants to learn more about new and better ways of doing agriculture. So yeah, there's so many different ideas and wishes. They all have hopes and dreams. So, the more you talk to them and the more you let them know that just surviving isn't all that there is in their, for their life, that God has a purpose for them, that they're all needed and loved, and that it's okay to dream because these dreams can become a reality for them, and now that they keep letting me know, do you remember? This is my dream. This is what I want to do. I say, yeah, I do remember, and I'm telling other people and we're working towards your dreams. Yeah.
And one of them was, I think that was 2 years ago, the Grace Pads, or it was a year and a half ago.
About a year ago, the Grace Pads were delivered. Yeah, Grace Pads is operated by a woman, Grace. I can't think of her last name, but her organization is Grace Pads, operated in Malawi, and so she provides reusable feminine hygiene products to women in Malawi, and they're made in Malawi, and they get a bucket, and then they're cotton reusable pads and soap. So then they have their feminine hygiene
and underwear as well.
And underwear, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we got those last year for there was, I think, 15 provided last year. So we raised the funds for just over half of them, and then Grace got funding provided from other donors for the other half, and then she personally brought them all down to the family and talked through the whole process and how they worked, and each of the women and girls in the family got those because having those products for the women and girls in the family was a constant struggle as well. When you don't have money and don't have access to products, what do they do? You know,
you can't go to school, and you have trouble going to do different chores,
and you don't have access to being able to purchase anything. And it was a constant shame as well, and a cultural shame. So that and then it was a financial burden that they couldn't address. So it was just a constant struggle, and something that was very hard to bring up as a conversation too. So that became a burden. And Grace, who runs Grace Pads, was very good about inspiring not just the girls and the women, but also the boys, about talking to everybody about having a dream and having a vision and thinking beyond where they were at and the struggles they were at, but thinking to what else they can do and where they can think and what was beyond for them. Yeah, she's a great lady.
And it was a very special day when she arrived. Everybody was so excited because this never happened. And in the village, it was like having a celebrity to come in for something like this. So really incredible.
Yes.
And the time is coming around for all that to be replaced. So that will become a priority in the next little while as we realize where they are at with the supplies that they do have. So.
Yeah. Those they say are probably every 18 months, those should be replaced again, instead of every month trying to supply, each of the women with another round of disposable supplies. So that's an amazing product too.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, so at the end of the podcast here, we hope that you have some new ideas to think about and some ways that you can approach how your day goes. As you finish off your cup of tea, we want to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we wish you well. And if you do want to check anything out about the tea, it's the CapeBretonTea.ca is the website, and that'll take you to the Greenwell Center for Holistic Health. You have the shop there, but you also have a tab just about the tea company if you want to check anything else out. And I do have different sections where I've just put the Moyo Family and I put their story. And if you want to check any of that out, it's right there for you.
And the community.
And the community tea, which is in small and medium bags, so 50 grams or 100 grams. And we're happy to support weddings, gatherings. We've used it for business meetings, different companies. So any way that you think it might be helpful, we're happy to talk about it and see that it gets out there. Thank you so much for listening. And thanks. It's so much fun to always have you.
Terrific. Thanks so much.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Be Well with Dr. Michelle Greenwell. There are a couple of resources I want to just point out. When you go to the website greenwellcenter.com, you'll have a pop-up window. That pop-up gives you the top 8 easy stress releasers that you can use every day. That's something you can put beside your computer, the bathroom mirror, beside the bedside table. A great resource. Also, my YouTube channel. It is full of playlists with all kinds of different ways that you can activate energy and bring vitality into your day. You can find that at when you go to YouTube at Michelle Greenwell. And last, if you're a Linktree person, Linktree, linktr.ee/Greenwell Center. That has all my resources in one spot. Those are for intricate little things that you can't get everywhere. And it's a wonderful way for me to be able to share all the different aspects of the kind of work I do. So thank you for listening. Be sure to drink that tea. And if you want to have the tea blend that was shared in the podcast today, then be sure to check out capebretontea.ca. Have a wonderful day.